Good morning, hello, welcome to Mobility Magic on a Monday. Nice to see you guys. If you're watching this back on the replay, thanks for checking us out. If you are just joining us live right now, great to see you. And hello. So as usual, a lacrosse ball, tennis ball, and a foam roller could be useful. If you have other stuff too, other mobility tools like yoga bricks and so on, they're also useful. We might even get to integrate those today, so I want to grab those too. Welcome to everyone that's joining us. We are working a little bit on hips, on a little bit of active mobility work, so we're going to add some load to the work today, because I had a few questions that came in from people that were looking for exercises, mobility tools that they could use to get them primed for exercise that a little bit quicker, because I appreciate the gyms are starting to open back up, which is great news, and we want to get you into your workouts a lot quicker, and also want to provide you the tools to get into that mobility and that active range that you want to use for your workouts, and avoid any discomfort and pain that you might feel otherwise. So without further ado, we're going to get into the session. We've got enough people in right now, which is great. And again, if you're watching on the replay, hips, low back, a little bit of active mobility, some loading the movements. So hopefully you can join in actively, otherwise you can watch the replay. And again, if you have any questions or if you have any comments, just save them until once you post the video afterwards, because it allows me to action those straight afterwards, and obviously work on content for you guys for next week for anything that's affecting you otherwise. Just gonna turn off the comments. Nice to see you all. Hey Andrea, how's it going? Hello to everyone else. Otherwise we're gonna actively get into the session now. So let me just turn off the comments. Okay, so again, for those of you watching on the replay, those of you watching now, we're going to work a little bit on hips and actively getting into the ranges that we need to work on for things like squatting and deadlifting and so on. So the first thing we always do is we're going to start off on our feet. We're going to grab a lacrosse ball if you have one, and we're going to start under a foot. The reason I like to start here is it's a great place just to kind of actively or consistently get feedback from what is working and what's not working. And we'll go through our other protocols straight afterwards as well. For now, I'm just kind of scanning my foot, just kind of seeing what feels good, what doesn't. And we're going to start at the base of our big toe, so the knuckle of our big toe, just underneath that. A little bit of downward pressure into the foot, and nice deep breaths in, just to try and get some down regulation of that nervous system. Okay, so a little bit of downward pressure, not too much, about a 6 or a 7 out of 10. It's just a little bit of pressure to enable us to feel the weight into our foot a little bit, and we're just extending our toes, we're bringing them down again. Extending our toes, bringing them down again. Really, really easy, really simple stuff. Doesn't need to be complex. We're not aggressively rolling the foot. That's something we want to avoid. So we're just coming up and down, flexion extension of the toes, and then up and down. And we just moved across the middle to the outside. We're going a little bit quicker today, so we've got plenty to cover. And now we're moving to the middle of the foot, and we can pivot our foot up and down. We can plantar flex, dorsiflex our foot. We're just loading into the range and back again. And now we're to the back of the heel, more towards the heel, just around the area where a lot of people get that plantar fasciitis, that tugging on the tissue that can cause that pain. So if you want to back off just a little bit, just about 5 out of 10, that would be good. And we're just starting to rotate that foot a little bit. We're just trying to turn it, just turning it in and out, just to see what's going on. So let's switch over to the other foot now. Again, we're just moving a little bit quicker today than otherwise normally would. There's more detailed videos that you can go back and reference from previous weeks. But we're starting underneath the big toe on my left foot, your right foot if you're watching it in reverse. And we're just coming up and down, and again, 7 or an 8 out of 10 on this one, just a little bit of downward pressure. If this feels a little bit more uncomfortable for you, back off the pressure, frequency over intensity. You want to make sure that this is something that you're doing on a frequent basis, and we're not aggressively doing it first time around, because that can lead to bruising, which actually makes it more uncomfortable and worse. So move the ball across the middle of the foot now, up and down, flexing, extending the toes, and then we're just seeing what else needs work. And you can spend as long as you need to on this, but I would suggest probably a few minutes every so often, 2 or 3 times a day is best, and frequency trumps intensity on this type of activity. So again, back of the foot this time, we're just coming up and down, we're plantar flexing, dorsiflexing our foot, just trying to get some downward pressure into that foot, okay? So kick the lacrosse ball away for now, we don't need that for now. Let's just do a check-in with the rest of our body. You can either do this before or after lacrosse ball, but we want to just make sure that we're getting the weight over the middle of our feet. We're just finding some balance in our body because we want to find a way to have a feedback loop to see if any of these things actually work for you, whether you want to include them in your workout. So again, nice tall stance, shoulders back, take a nice deep breath in. I want to start breathing into your stomach. So if you're not sure how to do that, easy way to find your diaphragmatic breath is just to cover one nostril and take a deep breath in, and that will automatically start to fill your diaphragm, your belly a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is, if you do that 3 or 4 times, even if you just do that for the rest of the session, you just cover one nostril and you look a little bit silly, that's okay. Diaphragmatic breaths are always a preference when it comes to down regulating your body. So nice deep breath in, we're going to start filling a third into your stomach. Then we're going to try and get a little bit more breath into the chest straight afterwards. So it's going to go belly, a little bit lower chest, and then upper chest as well. Nice deep breath in. And I want to make sure again, shoulders roll back, pulling down to the floor, nice even pressure over the middle of your foot. So let's try that one more time. Hands either on the hips around, just latch to the belly button, or on your nose, just try and fill that diaphragm, which is nice deep breath in. All the way up. And as you breathe out, let the shoulders sink down a little bit. And as you do that, let's just see how your weight shifts if you feel central. Let's just use that as a feedback loop. So the first thing we're going to do today is add a little bit of rotation in the hips. We've done this loaded on the floor, but I thought another way to do this would be to do this standing, and this can work really effectively. If you actually have vinyl floors, it's going to be great with socks because it's a little bit easier. What we're actually going to do is we're going to do windscreen washes with the hip. So we're going to load the other leg a little bit more, and we're just going to turn our toe in and our toe out, try to keep that leg straight. So what's happening is the ball in the socket is just turning directly, and we don't really do this during the day. We're not really turning our leg all the way in, all the way out. So just do what you can with this range. You don't have to go all the way in like I'm doing. You can go as far as you need to. Again, if you have any issues with your hips and knees, try and make sure that most of your load is on the opposite leg. You can even hold on to something or rest on a chair or lean against the wall, that's fine. But we're going to do windscreen washes with the hip. Now again, really great for prepping that hip for movement because you're actually going to exchange a lot of fluid in the hip. Because avascular joints don't have a direct blood supply, they tend to exchange fluid by movement. So like compression, decompression, which is the best way to get some nutrients into those hips. So again, see how that feels. Do it before and after. We're going to do that a few times, we're going to do it 3 times, okay? So we just change the other side. Again, wall, chair, whatever you need to stabilize. So we're loading this leg, this opposite leg. We're going to start with the toe externally rotated. We're turning a leg straight, so try and keep it straight as possible internally. You may even feel some stretches in places you didn't feel before. This leg on this side for me lacks a little bit external rotation but has more internal rotation. It's a bit opposite to my other hip, so it tends to suggest potentially that you might have a slight hip shift one side or a rotation of the hips, so a counter-nutation of the hips, and that isn't necessarily a problem, but it's just something to be aware of. If it becomes functional, you may want to have that looked at and work with a personal trainer, let's say, to help correct that. So going to switch back to this leg again. It's really, really good just because it gets some rotation of the hip. We don't normally do this movement during the day. If we're putting down pressure, just sitting a lot, that can add a little bit of pressure into the joint and can actually stop it exchanging fluid and nutrients. So you get a lot of pain directly in the hip. This could be useful. If you have any arthritis or chronic conditions to the hip, you may want to take this one out, you may not want to do this one. So again, rotating the hip, trying to keep as much pressure on this leg as possible. That's round 2 on my right leg, your left leg. And again, as you do this, just pay attention to how that hip feels, where you're compensating. Just go as far as you can. try not to open up too much. Just try and keep your hips facing forward if you can, and rely on that leg to rotate, because that's the only way you're going to know if it gets better throughout this movement. Because if you start to develop a compensation pattern and again I'm starting to do it now as I talk about if you develop a compensation pattern to deal with that, then obviously you're not going to know if this is helping. So again, round 2, done on both sides. Let's switch legs again. Last time on this right leg, this might seem like a really simple exercise, but if you're really feeling it in the hips, you really start to feel it in the side of your body or running through your leg or into your adductors, let's say, this could be a great one for you to do on a regular basis. So just turning those hips. Now, I'm going to show you another exercise in a sec. I'm going to come down to the floor. Really great psoas opener I like to do. I'll give you a couple of options for it. And you can do this one before or after that one in combination. You can even do a set before and a set after. And it can be really effective just to help open up those hips and those adductors. So again, keep the hips pointing forwards, set of headlights on a car, let's say, just pointing forwards. Really good to do these ones in the mirror as well, I would say, because it's just going to help you to know if it's helping you improve you. So, done our external internal rotation. Looks really simple and easy. It's actually something that's kind of skipped over by a lot of people because it doesn't seem like it's going to have a lot of bang for buck. But if you just do a quick kind of check-in, wiggle your hips, you'll already see that these start to loosen up your hips very effectively just by a small internal external rotation of the whole leg. So, gonna grab a foam roll if you have one. I personally actually really like to do this with an exercise ball. So I'll show you how to get into this with a foam roller first, and I'll show you how to get into this with an exercise ball, okay? So I have a slight diagonal angle just so you can see me on the camera. We're going to target this area here, so a little bit of diaphragmatic breathing involved. We're opening up the psoas a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of extension of the low back, so if you have any back issues, feel free to skip over this one. You can also do this one with a kettlebell as well. And where I want you to place this is just to the left of your belly button, about 3 inches, just around the hip. So you're just laying on top of the hip a little bit. And again, if you have any low back issues, this may be one to skip over. If you are good to go, let's jump straight into it and let's work on this one. So feeling a little bit of pressure in your hips now because there's a little bit of rotation. Going to take a diaphragmatic breath. And again, if you can't quite do that, just cover one nostril, your body will do the rest. So deep breath in, and as you breathe out, let your body just sink into the foam roller. So nice deep breath in. Let my hips sink. There's a little bit more of a rotation, but I'm actually getting more of a feel in the tissue. And deep breath in. Let your body sink down. And see if you can capture a little bit more tissue in that hip. And our intention here is actually going to be to capture as much tissue as we can of that glute psoas, anything around kind of the abdomen, the diaphragm, and we're just kind of sinking into that tissue, putting our weight down, and then we're going to add some extension from both ends of the body, so distal, proximal distal kind of ends of the body. So nice deep breath in. Okay, so if you do not have any lower back issues or you don't feel any twinges, this could be a good option for you. We're putting down pressure in the middle, but we're actually doing a little bit of a fake push-up, kind of Sphinx position, pushing up a little bit. And we're kind of teasing that tissue out from the opposite end, so you can actually turn your body away from it. If you have any back issues, obviously just stay in that first position. And now let's come back to the start position. And this time we're actually going to lift the leg up. So keeping that downward hip pressure, lift that leg up and away. And see if you feel a little bit of a stretch. Hip pressure down, lift that leg, squeeze that butt. Let's just do that one more time. Lift that leg. And you should feel it kind of tease out from the center all the way out from one end to the other. So I'm stretching from the top, stretching from the bottom. I'm getting that tissue to tease open. So you can even do a combination. And that should work really well. So this time I'm going to do the opposite side. I'm going to do the opposite side with the ball, just so you can see that variation. I'm going to switch sides. If you don't have one, that's completely fine. Any round object tends to work really well, or something soft that you can sink into. This is really good because it's kind of dome shaped, and you can do this obviously in the gym if you have any tools at your disposal. So again, letting my body sink into it. You can do this with a foam roller, no problem. You can do this even with a yoga block and like a tennis ball, lacrosse ball, that can work really well. So I'm taking a deep breath in first, letting my body sink. So I'm sinking into the tissue. Excellent. And then I'm going to do the Sphinx position again. So now that my body is sunk into the tissue, I've let it capture as much. I'm feeling a little bit of localized pressure, maybe in that hip, hopefully not in the low back. I'm just pushing up slightly and turning away slightly, just to stretch. And now coming back down again, and I'm lifting that leg just a little bit. And now, if you're good to go, you can do both. Just stretching away slightly. And you can spend as long or as little time on this one as you need to, because we're just opening up that psoas, that diaphragm area, just kind of capturing that tissue. This can help ease that pressure around the diaphragm. With breathing can help ease the adductors as well. The psoas, iliopsoas kind of runs downwards into the adductors. That can be really effective. It can also help us with that nutation we might have felt when we were doing that wiping exercise a second ago with the internal external rotation. So just do a check-in, some nice deep belly breaths. Again, cover your nostril if you need to get directly in there. And that works really well just to kind of help, again, fill that diaphragm. So now, let's come down to an exercise we do quite commonly. This is going to be our hip seated rotation, which again, you'll recognize because this is the way we do that kind of same exercise, that check-in, that mobility for the hips, similar to the way we just did it standing. So let's just see how we did. And we're just going to see if we can start on one side and the other with a little bit of rotation, a little bit of downward pressure, see if it feels good. How does that feel for you? Okay, awesome. So normally what we do is we come into a 90-90 kind of stretch wave. We cover that off a few times over the weeks, so that can be a great place to follow on from when we do this next one. So we're going to do, I think, an exercise with shin box. This would be really great to help load that hip. So if you need a yoga mat or something soft for the floor, if you're on carpet, great, good to go. Now with this, it's a little bit more advanced because we're loading the hip and the knee. We're trying to come up onto our, using our hips, lifting off the floor. So this one again, if you need to grab a yoga block just to raise yourself up, that can be good. Or if you need to support yourself, I tend to suggest just pushing down kind of a foam roller, because that can be really effective, just to stabilize yourself as you come up. But if you can do this without any assistance tool, that's also great, and just go to where you can manage, okay? So just coming up, pushing our hip forward, just feeling our body straighten, and we come down, let our butt kiss the floor, and then come straight back up again, okay? And we're gonna do that 3 times. So we've done 1, 2, nice clip from my knee, 3, we're gonna change sides. So you can either transition on the floor or transition standing up. Now this is my tighter side. So if you have a side which is slightly tighter, you can add a little bit of external rotation. For this one, you can even use your foam roller just to help you compensate, and that's okay. And if this is a little bit too advanced for you, feel free to do this one on a raised surface. So just put something underneath your butt just to prop you up. So again, coming up, you can even use your hands, I'm sure I should have said that. Just coming down, turning our body a little bit, okay? Turning our body a little bit, kiss the floor, come back up. Again, pushing your hips forward, squeeze your butt, okay? Coming down, coming back up. I want to try and turn if I can. If not, completely fine for now. Facing towards your knee, coming down, kiss the floor, come up. So that's 3 on that side. And feel free to repeat if you want to. Let's just do a quick check-in. Windscreen wipers, see how they feel. Feel a little bit better. Excellent. and let's just come into a standing position. So if you have a kettlebell or weight or something that you can hold to keep a straight line, this will make sense to you. So one of the questions I've had before is, how can I better prime myself for something like a deadlift? And how can I actively do it in the case of mobility? So I'm priming myself. One of the things I really like to do is do a kettlebell deadlift or a position which helps to add into that rotation we did with our legs, that external rotation from the hip, because it's good to get your body primed in the right way. So hopefully you can see the kettlebell. I appreciate it's black, so you may not be able to see it on the screen, and as is my top. But what we're going to do is come into a sumo stance, but slightly widen the shoulders, so about a foot away from my shoulders. Enough to get about to where you would be seated. And this is going to help us move through an active range. So again, keeping nice and tall. We're trying not to bend forward. We're just staying nice and tall. So I'm going to show you from a few angles with this one. And all we're using the kettlebell for, if you want to use a weight, is just to keep us kind of more in a straight line. So we're sinking down, 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 and then you're getting to where you might feel stuck, and we're just coming back up again. So just go to where you feel you can go. We're just coming down, 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 down. We're feeling the hips, we're seeing where we can get to, and then we're coming straight back up again. So it's a sumo position. Best to do this in front of the mirror because you start to shift. This can be a great way to see which side's more dominant, which side you're compensating with. So we're just sitting back. We're just now going to grab the weight, and this is just going to guide us through a nice straight line. If you don't have a weight, completely fine. Just grab a water bottle or something, and this is actively going to help us with that range. And we're just coming straight back up again. So it's always going slow. This is a great active mobility tool because now we can pause in position. So, I feel a little bit stuck here. This is about where I normally sit. So now I want to stay in that range. I'm going to let myself hold isometrically here. I'm pushing into the ground with my feet, and now I'm standing up again. So, great way of helping you to overcome those sticky angles, because often we sit, we're not actively sitting, we're not holding that position, we're sitting in a really relaxed position, we're not doing any work, and that's where we kind of lose that strength. That's where that hip health tends to suffer. So again, let's go into that position. So we're sinking down, our knees are coming out, we're really watching for that compensation, so we're not shifting from left to right, we're pushing those knees out, coming down, slowly, 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 feel your hips start to tighten, then you want to come back up again, okay? And it's not a bend forward, so we're not bending forward like this, we're trying to keep our body nice and upright. So I'll show you from this side angle. So slowly coming down, pushing our hips back, opening our hips, feel that load, that stretch in your hip, coming straight back up again. And again, sinking down, and if you don't have a weight, that's completely fine. Just bring your arms forward. It's less of a squat, because we're just bringing our knees out to the sides. Nice sumo position, come straight back up again. Let's do a check-in. Let's see how our hips feel. So we're gonna come back to our internal external rotation, just to see how that feels. Might feel a little bit better now because we've done some active work to help load that movement through that range where you might be a little bit sticky. So if you get stuck in a squat, in a deadlift at that position, it could be good to perform a sat before and after just to see how the health of your hip feels. Again, these are just a couple of exercises you could do, 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps as a primer before you deadlift or squat. Based on a question I had from a viewer of our Instagram channel, that would be what I would recommend as an active exercise. So now we're going to move on to another option for you with your squat. So many times before we've had on the channel where we have tight ankles. So one thing I recommend is sitting in a squat. But how do you overcome that position? Well, if you have something like a set of plates or some books or even some yoga blocks like I do, what can be really good is to sit in a deep flex position, because you sat in a flex position all day at work, but it's a very shallow flex position. So I like to grab a couple of yoga blocks or some weights to shin my heels, and let's just sit in a position which works for you. Now, if you have a TRX or a chair, this can also be useful. but we just want to sit as low as we can. So this is just going to help overcome that that dorsiflexion which people lose over time if you wear set heels or if you don't have the range, because you might have tight ankles, tight calves, weakness in your anterior tibialis. This can help you, and sitting in a deep flex position actively can be really good for those hips because we've loosened them. We've done a little bit of activation, but this can be the position which really helps add some health to that range. So sitting in that human rest position, that deep flexion position can be really good. So again, yoga blocks, books, weights, some shin to heels, even a foam roller, or whatever works for you. Sitting on your shoes can also be enough to give you that edge as well. And as you sit here and just relax, you'll find that you just sink deeper and deeper. So next piece to this, if you're in this position, you're like, oh, how can I get out without kind of crawling on the floor because I can't stand back up again actively? Well, we just got to push back and up a little bit into the heels, and then we relax. And we're just going to do that a few times just to actively add to that range. So we're pushing down, loading the whole foot and the heel, and then we're just relaxing again. And we're pushing up, and then down. And then we're just going to stand it all the way up, okay? Shake off your legs. See how that feels. Hopefully, if you bend, your hips should feel really good right about now because you've helped improve the end range. And I would always suggest, if you could do a squat workout, if you've had a long day sitting, it's good to sit in a fully extended position. So, a nice brisk walk, and then a nice deep flex position. Because if you've sat in a semi-flex position all day, that's probably removed that ability for your hip to move in a really healthy way, 360 degrees. So let's just do this one more time. Have time to do that, which is great. So we're just gonna, again, you should the heels. If you can do this naturally anyway, you have good dorsiflexion, always still worth doing. But we're just gonna sit into this nice deep squat position. Hips are open because we've done our primer from earlier. We're sinking our weight a little bit more into the midfoot because you want to have equal pressure over your whole foot. And we're just relaxing in this position. So let's take some nice diaphragmatic breaths now. If you need to cover one nostril again, that's fine. Letting your hips relax a little bit. Excellent. So let's go one step further. Let's see if we can help you open the hips up a little bit. Now you see that my hands are in between my knees. Well, let's squeeze your elbows just a little bit. Squeeze, 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 and then relax. And let's do that again. Squeeze, 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 and relax. And if you're feeling clicks and pops, that's actually a good thing, believe it or not, in this position. And we're squeeze, 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 and relax. Now let's push our hips back a little bit. Let's stand up just a little bit, pressure through the whole foot, and relax. Knees come out just a little bit, pressure into the whole foot, pushing up, and down again, just relax in that position. And hopefully if you don't have to bail out forward, you can stand all the way up. And let's see how we feel. So hips, hips, bend just a little bit, come into a little bit of extension, hips come forward a little bit more, and let's get rid of these yoga blocks. And again, if you don't have any of those, you can just use some books. You can even use a TRX like I have. We have those in the club as well for you. Or you can grab like an immovable object, like a door frame, or let's say a squat rack. That can also work really, really great just to help you kind of get into that deep flex position. Really good primer before you do any major exercises, and it can really help you get into the active range that you might not have before, and help build into some passive range. So let me just turn the comments on again, because we're at the end of our session. And again, if you're watching this on review, if you're watching this right now and you have any feedback, you have anything you would like us to work on, feel free to leave comments in the reposted video that we post every week as our kind of like video archive that we use for you guys. So if you have anything you'd like us to work on, feel free to message me directly. That's Fascial Stretch Simon on Instagram. Love to hear from you as always, and hopefully you found it useful. If there's anything you'd like to cover, as I say, feel free to send me some comments. Have a great week. I will see you same time next week on Monday, and yeah, see you guys soon.